Welcome once again. In our session now, we will have Güven Çatak, Game Lab Founder Director at Bahcesehir University, Can Oral, Lecturer and Cultic Games Creative Director. We will have Görkem Emrullah, Game Developer, and again from Cultic Games, we will have Game Developer Felix Gumenita and Bora Cengiz, Audio Implementation Specialist. They will share their achievements, experiences, observations, and obstacles and insights on the Zenith League project. Now I would like to invite them one by one to join us. Welcome once again. Hello everyone. Hello, you can start whenever you're ready. Okay, let's start then. The session today will be moderated by me, but at the same time, Can will support me, I guess, at that point. No. Okay, no. That's the exact answer that I was expecting. Actually, we are always trying to get together education and the sector. We want to get the education technologies and sector together. I hear some sound. Okay, no problem. No, I hear some voice. I hear some noise. Görkem, can you be in a crowded place? Okay, then let me mute my mic. Can you still hear the noise? Okay, you do. Just a sec then. Mr. Güven, you have the light on as it's the sign of the noise coming. Okay, but now it's good. Okay, then, as I said, we are always trying to get together education and the sector. We are trying to find ways to get the lectures and working practices together and introduce them to the students. And when it's about game development, game design particularly, this gains a lot of importance. Catching up the up-to-date situation with the sector, catching up with the sector, getting the dynamics and turning them into mechanisms are really important. And we do many experiments in that regard on game design, postgraduate and graduate programs of Bahcesehir University. We came up with many communities and we tried to add these to the lectures. There were workshops and there were game developing marathon. That was an example. So we are coming up with different formats and we are trying to integrate them to our lecture plans. What I will talk to you about today is something that I'm proud of. It's a new model, Zenith League. This model was developed by me and Can Oral, Cultic Games, and our lab's cooperation was the origin, and it has the pilot project going on. Right before this, maybe Can will go into detail. The concept of Zenith League project has its seed in Cultic Games' first project, Indieway game. We had some experiments, trials there, and we had the postgraduate and graduate students there. They were in the project, they did internships, they have been part of this project, they put their efforts. But this time, this is a project from scratch. And in such a project, we would like to include the students and the professionals at the same time, both in business developing and creative decisions. We would like to have them included, and this was the structure we are talking about. And inside the umbrella of Buggets, there are partner businesses, and we would like to continue to work on this model. We are still testing the model, and this is hot, I can say, because both in the part of students and the professionals, we will hear experience, narrative, and we will talk about where we messed up, where we were good, and all that. So I would like to give the floor first to Can. I am sure he has an introduction as well. Thank you, Professor. Actually, this was a really good summary. My first introduction to education was when my professional journey started. When I first received the training of arts, I had some thoughts about going academic, but I wouldn't expect it so early. After Celtic Games has given birth, we have been in digital game development of a 4 years graduate program, and these were the same years. So very fastly, I conveyed my professional information experience to students, and during this process, actually to give people something and me to learn something were the objectives, getting the UX, understanding how some information might convey, and getting the students commenting on their creative sides and how I could encourage them. These were the important parts of this process. And in this process, gradually in years, I have seen the successful and willful students, and their art, their work might convey into something else. That was my thought. But it's a consuming project, Stygian, because it is demanding. It takes a lot of time. So at the part of Stygian, I was saying to Mr. Güven, can we do something like this? But I wasn't able to have the opportunity. And after we finished Stygian, inside the umbrella of Zenith League, I can briefly say that the students from the beginning of the project, where it's a dream, the students would, from production to Steam area to from design to active development and PR stages, the students would learn about the process and they will become sector professional, industry professionals. This is the structure of Zenith League. Beyond being an internship program, Zenith League's umbrella covers the students as the profit partners of the project, and they having them as the part of the crew that takes responsibility. That's the point about Zenith League. Of course, there are many interns, and we are working with them, but primarily, what I should mention as a difference is that we are partners and we consider Zenith League students as industry professionals. And that's how I approach my students as well. But this is the second stage of the issue of the business. Now I can say we have been in this for more than 2 years, and it was like a small project. And the first one was a 2 hour project, and it became 6 hours. And as in every business Celtic Games goes into, we put the scale above, we put the bar high above, and it turned into something different, something big. No matter what, we are at the end, so the final chapter, and we are getting closer and closer to the end, and everyone is satisfied with what they do, and everyone has some insight about being able to do something good. We had started with zero expectation, but now it is being translated to 6 languages. It will be published in 6 languages. And for Nintendo Switch platform, we have an agreement right now. So I can say we have interviewed many good publishers in indie area. For instance, think of different publishers, and these are the pioneer ones. We have been in contact with them. We draw great attention in Turkey compared not like our unlike our previous game, and it was not translated into English, into Turkish, sorry, and it was criticized because it wasn't on Turkish. But this time we had positive feedback from the Turkish community as well, I can say. So this was my brief summary. I'm sorry if it's not as brief, but let's hear from our students a little bit because they are the real experience people in Zenith League. Let me underline one thing briefly. As you mentioned, you are doing the project, but at the same time, You are getting the know-how hot out from the oven and introduce it to the students. It started with Citizen, and now with Zenith League and following projects, we are trying to make it have a better structure, and we are still structuring it. Let me give the floor to our students. Felix, let's start with you. Okay. Let me talk to you about myself. In 2017, I discovered the design department of Bahcesehir University and I enrolled in it. When I enrolled in it, I was really happy because I gave up on dentistry to enroll in this department, and I'm really satisfied with this decision of mine. At the end of my junior freshman year, I met Mr. John, and during his classes, there was one thing I really liked. And when I looked at the past, I can say that I could do better. At the beginning of my second year, there was Zenith League, and I decided to join it. Actually, that's how the journey started for me. At the part of development, I was tended to do it, but I was more interested in UX, UI, sorry, and because it has to do with design. Development, actually, I stepped on development after 7 months, I can say approximately, and on the following term, I believe that I'm able to manage the development part right now. It had many cons for me. It had many pros for me, and uh, I can say that in terms of time, it was really demanding. Being a student and at the same time working for a business like this was really tiring and demanding. It required great time management. I think one of the most important points is this: if you manage time well, everything goes really well, and you can put your bar above, you can put your enterprise to better position. So I'm really satisfied with being a part of Cultic games, and Cape's release is something that I look forward to. We are really satisfied with you as well, Felix. I can see how our students evolved compared to the beginning point, and it is impossible not to be proud of them, regardless of them being a part of Celtic games in future or not. I'm saying this. I'm really proud of them. We had a reason to start this journey, and I believe we met it. Compared to their peers, there are limited individuals who perform better, and we can do it now. We can work with them. But let's ask, did we come up with a good game? Have we come up with a good game? What will the world think about it? And we will see this in months. But let's continue talking about what Felix talked about. This brings this was an education project at the same time. So I did not put my students fixed to a role, and I did not expect efficiency from them in that role. First, I encouraged them to the areas they were tended to, they had tendency, but they then switched to positions where they were more efficient. For instance, Melike started as animation asset, but then she became part of the development crew. Apart from her, when we look at the structure in general, there is always slides, there are always shifts, and at the same time, there are students who could not find correct positions for them and who prefer different journeys in life. There were many of them. For instance, Bora, before Bora, there was a guy working in audio, a friend, and then he switched to another job back then. And he thought he would be more efficient there. So he tried different things in the meantime. He came during the final project, but we continued like a turtle, I can say. And approximately a week ago, he said, "My biggest regret is this, my professor. I can't believe how it happened because they thought it would be really imaginary, finishing this game, releasing it, playing it in different languages. But as it gets close, we also realize what we undertook. Maybe boutique at a PC game like this, of course, takes some time. It is known, and we are talking about an indie game, and it has experiments, different experiments like Zenith League, and so it is obvious that it would take time. The project itself teaches this patience, I guess. I don't want to talk about the differences between the generations, but we want to solve, make do things faster. This is the reality of our time because the age pushes us. It's not only about the generation Z; it is about the times. But being patient in these projects is more and more re- promising. It gives results. It gives you the fruits. Actually, I'm a little bit surprised because when I was their age, of course, I have been working on personal projects. I wasn't really different to them. I wasn't really different compared to them. But managing this when you're a student is an extra challenge in today's world, I can say. Firstly, you need to have a belief about doing something good. This should be clear because there are many distractors. There are many people and factors who can make the new generations go in the wrong direction, and being resilient to all of these is really difficult. So, should we go to Bora now? Yes, let's go to Bora. Sorry for the lightning. I couldn't control the lightning, and there are shades probably. Sorry for that. My name is Bora Cengiz. I'm a third year student in digital game design. I'm 1 year behind of my peers. I have been studying IT engineering before, computer engineering before in Bahcesehir, but then I preferred digital game design. Zenith League started in my first year, so I didn't want to apply back then in my freshman year, and I was involved in the project later on. Back then, it really drew my attention as the concept because people from the sector would be there. It would continue during our studies, and particularly if if a student wanted to work on a more small and medium term project, saying when the school ends is really frustrating for a student because you finish the school and let's say you go into a self-development, self-improvement process of 1 2 year, and if does not give its results, it's really a terrific, horrible situation. That was my first impression about it because it was a project that would go on during studies, as I said. I wasn't involved back then, and then I was involved. I can make some additions to Felix point. When you're a student, working at the same time was really difficult for me as well, in the beginning, particularly, because there are reasons for this. Being a student and switch shifting to a professional environment needs information and culture storing in the beginning. You go every day, you work for hours actively, and this is different. You don't have any leisure time during the working hours, and you don't have any time spent for nothing. So this was extra load in the beginning for me, but we developed really fast, and this extra load, this extra burden reduced, diminished. I was really enjoying the work and enjoying the process at the end, and I can give a comment about this. Some students might think that working environment and it is a full day work, and it was terrifying to me as well. But after you get involved in our working environment, you can say that it's a special and different working environment. And when I talk to different people, they agree with me as well. So I was really satisfied with the working process, and I have a more and more positive perspective about working. So I'm really satisfied with it. Maybe we can talk a little bit about the process. For instance, John said everyone had different roles, and everyone would change roles. So the whole production line was introduced to the students, and they could experience each point of production line. I'm thinking of this as a production line, as I said, and everyone goes through it, and there is the master and pupil relation developing. So what kind of things do you do? For instance, let's think about more professional guys being more involved. So what's the balance here between the two? Let's hear from Can. We have Görkem as well. Actually, it is about learning and the output and trying to make the output more reliable. And being more reliable, responsibility has always grown in Zenith League, I can say, Professor. First of all, my approach was as like the following. This is a student project. We are trying something with students. That was not my perception. I always thought of the next project of Cultic Games, and I thought this project as one of the next projects of Cultic Games. And if it would carry the benchmark, there should be something different. There should be something quality because this is Cultic Games, and that's why I always had in my mind the emergency plan if the crew needed help. For instance, if they will fall down, to make the point they fall down softer. So I try to go with the NC plans because game development journey always has things going bad. And from the first class, every student knows this. 30% of what we do is really fun. We are telling stories about them, but the remaining 70% is about problem solving. This is the most positive way you can say this. You can express this. This might be technological problems, psychological problems, economical problems, production problems, and students were exposed to these really well as well. And it is also about negotiation. When you're trying to find the good, you have to negotiate. And this is what our business is all about. And we taught these to students during the project. And when you look from that perspective, the risk was small, the responsibility was small in the beginning. But what we did was that, for instance, if I saw less potential in Felix, Melike, or Bora, as our students improve themselves, the scale, or let's rephrase, or this conception, or the success, or the quality of the project will rise. We would go with rough animations in the beginning, for instance. We would go with basic interactions, and we could release the game like that as well, very well. But I saw that Felix could increase his output, or we got Bora in Odia, and I saw that he could improve himself in proximity and he could come up with solutions in different areas. So we increased the tasks that could increase the quality of the game, and at the end, we had good results. We always say this in our group. Okay, the first day was experience. The second day was better than the first, and the third was better than the second. So, in correct proportion, in positive proportion with our students' improvement. So the remaining crew are people who I can trust as professional sector professionals. But there have been many people coming and going in this process. There were some staying for 1 month or 2 months. There were many people coming and going. And I think there's a reason for this. I think this was a really good model in terms of educational, being an educational model. And when you think of the remaining people and their dynamics, it is really successful. But the next model, maybe this is Zenith 1.0 and it will be 2.0. I'm not sure if I will do the 2.0. The next educational model, if there will be any, the first thing I would add is the following. Because of the difference of making these two together because of age and being a student, maybe for a year with less ambition, less enthusiasm, we can do something. For instance, I could make a pay as you want game. Of course, I will pay attention to some quality, some certain quality, but instead of such a product, I could come up with something different. The first 6 months is given to education and getting to know to each other, and it is not so efficient in that way. And some 6 months could go for development, and this is more healthy, I guess. This is more beneficial, and you can make a pay as you want. And I can say that a hardcore difficulty game could be done in 2 years. So we couldn't hear from whom? Ömer Faruk. We couldn't hear from you. We have Görkem, professor. So about Görkem, let me say one thing. Actually, he worked in interactive experience in different agencies. There was a VR project, and our professor knows. I did some presentation about VR games, and actually we're about to do a VR project game as Celtic Games. And he was one of the guys I was interviewing during then. And Cats Another Line started, and in Unreal Engine, he had experience, but at the same time, he wanted to see game development from A to Z. So I invited him to do this, and then we could work on other projects. And he is among the professionals who saw the development of our students from the first day, from scratch. Actually, I was used to working alone, so I didn't know what would happen. So it was new to me as well as it was new to the students, and I learned to be a part of the team, and I learned how not to take all the burden on my own. There are Felix, Bora, Melike. We talked about different ones, and I saw that they were more professional than I thought. We are all partners in project, and I believe they are rightful to be partners. About learning the job, I'm a more generalist person, not only in game development. I'm more of a generalist person. If an animation guy asks something, I try to come up with solutions, and it is the same for everyone. Or in points where I'm stuck, I can learn things from our student friends. So I would like to thank them. I can still learn from them, and I congratulate them. It's a team game. It's a team game, definitely, definitely. And otherwise, I don't have many things to add to the project because John talked about everything roughly. I think it's time to talk about realities. What is going well and where we messed up? Let's talk about this. What did not get attention, draw attention, and how did we solve it? 80%, 70% of our job is problem solving set. So what kind of answers did we come up with for those problems? We have Ömer Faruk as well. I think Ömer Faruk is one of our moderators. Okay, I thought we were more in number. I think he is a moderator. Yes, okay. So then we heard from everyone. As far as I know, these are all people in our crew. If there is anyone else, I don't know. The crew is crowded as Zenith League, so that's why I thought so. No, no, you're right. It's a crowded Indieway session. We have many students. So, John, what did go well and where did you mess up? From the concept stage, from the documentation, and till the release, we can say that we came up with a good product. And these were people who have not worked together and who had not knew anything about the professional sector. So we came up with a game. We developed the game in world indie standards. Of course, we are still working on the game, but we can say this today, as of today. For the core contact, we have some job to do, but I can say this. Since we spent years, we don't really understand, but Mr. Murat came last time, one of our professors, and he said, "What are you doing, John?" That's, and as you know, he's abroad right now working in something. I said, "We are developing a project together with the students," and he said, "Can I see it?" And he played the game for 40 minutes, an hour, and he said, "It is really good." Why are you so surprised? Our previous games, they were good. You did not like them, but he said, "I'm developing them with the students, but I expected some school project." So this is a source of pride. This is like the next game of Cultic games. This was a trial as a model, but it's not a trial as a game. The ideas on design document or the vision were reflected on the game somehow, bad or good. And this is really difficult for games to reflect the vision on the game. So it's a success. Where we messed up, project started together with COVID actually, unfortunately, and we lost all motivation, all the structure, and we had to work and we had to have many meetings and we had to stay in touch. So these were difficult days. And beyond that, actually, I can say that I did not keep any student forcefully anywhere. And if a student said, "I don't enjoy doing this, and I don't think I can improve myself in this area anymore," I would switch that person to another area. And I tried to make my students more happier. So we had some changes in operation structure and all these factors. And at the same time, some students increasing their talent and capacity, or as the story of the game excited us more and more, the scale went up. And as I said in the beginning of the speech, this elongated the duration. As the duration elongated, for instance, some of the students, Felix, Bora, and Melike, and Bora has some more time. This was the same time when our students got closer to graduation. But we, of course, did not plan that something that will paralyze work for 2 years would come around, or an economic crisis. Just because of the economic crisis, not only Zenith League, but the students from other universities say what kind of difficulties they go through. And as a company owner, I'm going through many difficulties as well. Without getting them feel these difficulties, keeping the same civilized level, remaining professional, remaining professors, and trying to make a good game were not only difficult for me, but for all participants. So I can say this. The product is good, and in a civilized way, we could be able to get get to this point. But at the same time, I have one question. Okay, of course, it was right on the middle of the pandemic. This was when the model started, and it really taught us how to be creative. We were reliable on our creativity, but to survive, to get rid of this crisis, was really difficult. I believe we improved ourselves in these areas really well, survival and all that. Of course, you are a founding director of the project, but I remember the kickoff meeting of this project, and we heard about the game ideas of everyone. We spared some time to hear about these. We tried to focus on an idea coming from a student, finding that and improving it. This was the motivation at the beginning. And in fact, as a matter of fact, I remember this was something Yağız mentioned. We started the road from an idea Yağız mentioned, and then we heard from other friends, and we heard from you, Can, and with your contributions, the project realized, the project uh, became really concrete. In every stage, I can say. So, how did you take these creative decisions? What kind of a negotiation environment did you have? Actually, we said let's brainstorm, let's make these opinions. This is not the case because you cannot get anywhere like that. It is really difficult to get somewhere like that. Actually, I continue to do creative director business to certain level, to a certain level. The most important key in the way of the students working, we are looking for this kind of emotion because we think this can work. What do you think? Saying, what do you think? We're saying, let's work, let's write something. So there are some pinpoints, there are some titles, and we are identifying some edges, but these are not sharp edges, but we are expecting them to do something inside this area. It's not only about narrative or design, it is also about development. For instance, if Felix says we are going, when I say we are coming up with such a feature, Felix, I expect him to first do some RD. Yes, we have an RD period of several days, and everyone involved, we test it. And then if there are flaws, we fix them because that's how it generally works. For instance, I use a 3D dice and I want them to trace for the sequence of the game. Felix does the research and he says technically it would make more sense to have this 2D because of this and that reasons. And he said, and I said, okay, let's go that way. So my job here was getting together this feedback and getting them together according to the vision of the project. But the owner of those feedback, Felix, Bora, Görkem, for instance, Bora listens to another meeting in our office and he says, maybe we can do this like this, even if it's not related to audio. So where do all these get us? Everyone can has opinions and discussions about everything, and this is our feedback structure. For instance, Görkem stands up at an irrelevant point and says maybe we can have this at that scene. For instance, if we are excited in the office, this might come from Felix and Bora or another participant, and we can add that to pipeline because we are in the game developing, and maybe I will have more burden, but at certain point, Felix, Bora, or Görkem will have more burden, but everyone will try to learn to get extra responsibility to do better, and that was our learning outcome. There is no feedback that is not spoken out in our office. Someone thinks says, and if it's not accepted, there should always be reasonable explanation for it. Of course, this comes from my professorship because we were really used to uh, COVID, something in COVID. Can you explain why I got 95% but not 100%? That was coming from students. So I'm really used to tell about my criteria. So I do it in office as well. Do this to Görkem as well. Görkem says maybe he says something, but I say I cannot disturb the animation pipeline with that right now. Can you note it down? And these are not just like that, that are not set just like that. The ideas that seem to be not accepted can turn back and become more important again. So I think it's a collective conscious and a collective supra-conscious. Actually, the game is going on its own at some point. Yes, it becomes a living organism. It's going on a track, and everyone knows who is Sheldon, who is Zone, and these characters live in our houses as well. Can we say this, Felix? Yes, they have some stereotypes, and we are so involved in these characters. If something is set against the character, no, we can't have this because Felix does not do anything like that. Sorry, not Felix, but Don, for instance. So everything is so going on its own track. We are going in every area, not in only narrative, but in animation and all that. We were coming up with the characteristic animations of the characters, and in the office, everyone made some motions. They were like acting as if they were walking, and everyone was drawing things with their phones and all that. It was really joyful. So you are living the game at one part. Yes, that's for sure. After 2 or 3 months, you wake up and sleep with the game. But if you leave any trace on hearts or minds of the people with this togetherness, that will be really great. I wish this to firstly for my students and for all participants. Görkem, do you have anything to add about this decision-taking mechanism? Actually, I am the most notorious person about this because for the time being, there are ideas that we can use, and I'm always coming up with them, and Jan is always stopping me because we are sitting together mostly. Yes, Görkem says something, and I say, no, not right now. We can do this later on. This is our feedback. If it is not something we should never do, Felix, me, Bora, Melike, we will somehow integrate this to the game. And I can say that we are always happy with the output. I don't know if you would agree with it. It really excites me though. After a certain point, if there is a question or an incident disturbing someone, you can see it on the process. You have a test and someone doesn't like it, and we are working on it. We are altering it. Definitely. This is also part of the questioning process. We could make an adventure game that was not iterated for a year at all. But when we were first starting this journey, our last final scene was identified, determined. And when we were going through the final scene, no spoilers, of course, there was a there should have been a feeling that you would leave the game on the part of the player. And there were experiences that we should go through, and we are still discussing them, we are still debating them. If it got stuck, if the player got stuck on the iteration, if something was not solved, for instance, the stones on the tree puzzle, or the puzzle where there was a splash of water on a child. So if we did not take into consideration all these, we could not give our best and we could not meet our efforts worth. So we are working on an indie game, working with our students. There is a template. But at the same time, we are changing all these tools. For instance, since it's a cat, the cat jumps some at some point. There is a different feature for a jump. or a sniff, and we are still working on it. We re-evaluated all the inventory because a cat could only hold things with their mouth. So since she doesn't have a backpack, that would be the thing. So all of these are iterated and developed right now. So let's see how beneficial it will be, and the result will of course show it. When we wake up a morning, someone says there's a problem and how can we solve it? But then it can turn into a form from scratch. Definitely. Maybe we have questions. Let's turn to our moderator, Ömer Faruk. Mr. Güven, we don't have any questions at this point, and we are over our time around a minute. If you have any place where you can respond to questions, you can put it on chat. I thought we could go for more because we started a couple of minutes later, but no problem. Both to Celtic games, you can, or me, you can ask questions. I hope, and let's say we will finish the project, and we will have the first graduates of this project. Both our colleagues and both our students and the project itself will go through some graduation. I think there is a comment from Alpay. Thank you, Alpay. We cannot wait. I hope we will put this game and model in Gamescom. This team. We want to take them there in August. It will be face to face. Gamescom will be face to face, and we want to share it with the global world. Professor, there is a question. Let me read the question out for you. About the rights of the games created in Bug Lab, their rights belong to the students or the school. Of course, if it's created in game, it belongs to the students, but in games in Zenith League, as no, it belongs to Cultic Games. And within the scope of this project, they are partners to profit. All Zenith League participants are shareholders of profit because there should be an owner of the project, and for each Zenith League versions, there will be a new business introduced to the students, and of course, the owner of that project will be that business. But of course, the income and the credit of the project will be distributed and shared. But during regular courses, the right of the students' Bug Lab games belong to their name. Of course, there is no share to the school. Will you be in gaming Istanbul? This is a question. We really like to be there. Of course, we want to be there. Cevher Hanım asked this beforehand as well. It is about time. Game development is so demanding, both participating in that and preparing for the fair and being present there are not really easy, but if it is available in terms of time, we want to be there. Let's say inshallah. That's our plan. Thanks a lot for your participation. Thank you. See you. Bye bye.